Hello everyone. Today we are going to paint this flower. I'm going to guide you step by step on how to paint this lily. If you would like to know how to make this watercolor paper canvas, go to my previous video, just one video right before this. There I explain how to stretch this watercolor paper. This is my favorite watercolor sets from Winsor & Newton. You will also need a cup of clean water, a ceramic plate for you to mix paints, and a couple paper towel. These are my 4 favorite brushes. The first one is a round brush size 0. This paintbrush has high elasticity. It has a wide end and pointy edge. I use 2 small size brushes. One is number 1 and one is number 3. These ones are good to paint detail. And the last one is a mop brush, which is good to paint large areas. You will need an extra piece of watercolor paper for you to test the paint colors. I also have my tube paints here. I will explain to you a little bit why I prefer the pen more than the tubes. So these are my new tube paints. And the rest of them, as you can see, they are old ones. Because we were living in a dry area and my table is always located just by the window, they all get dry up. The new ones, as you can see, I can open it very easily. And the paint should look very liquidy. I'll put this one on the plate and we will use it later. The ones that already dry up, I can barely open it anymore. But I just found a trick to solve this problem. I just simply immerse this paint into the water overnight and then I can open the lid again. I also like to keep a photo reference ready for this flower, so I can see how exactly the color of the flower, how the brightness and contrast of this flower looks like. For these watercolor pen sets, you need to activate the paints before you use it, meaning you have to add lots of water on it and then wait until the paint gets dissolved with water. I'm not sure the right mixture that I will use for this flower, so I'll probably just gonna play around with this 3 kind of red colors. Don't forget to always wash and dry the brush right after you use it. I'm just going to put more of this rose paint and then add a little bit of red colors and another rose color from the pens and see how it goes. Remember, you can always try on the color of the paints on this extra piece of paper to see if you actually like the colors before you put it on the real painting. First, I will put water on one side of the flower petal. Just use the paintbrush to add water on one side of the petal, as you can see me doing now. Watercolor painting comes in layers. The first layers, you actually don't use that much paint. So you just add lots and lots of water and just a little bit of paint. And then you're going to use another brush, start with the color, follow the outline of the flower, and then take a clean brush, meaning just brush with water, there's no paint on it, and then just simply brush off the paint of the inner side of the flower so the color will get lighter. And then you're gonna start the same thing on the other side of the petal. As you can see, I'm using the smaller size of brush for this one. And don't forget, you can always rotate the paper if you like a different angle to work with. This is how the first layer will look like. Now for the second step, take a clean brush, add a bit of water, and make the whole petal wet again. And then I will take the smallest size brush, add a little bit of dense paint on it, and then make dots on the wet surface. This will make the blurry dots effects on the flower. Now I'm going to repeat the same process that I just did, but more zoom in so you can actually see how the paint and brush works. Wet the whole petal with the clean brush, and then add some color along the side of the outline of the flower. Rotate the paper if it's easier for you, then do the same on the other side. Soften the color in the center of the petal with the clean brush. And because I did the second step quite quickly, the whole petal is still wet, so I can just continue with the dots. Now this is how it looks like when it's fully dry. With watercolors, sometimes the color gets lighter when the paint gets fully dry. So this is when you decide if you need a retouch. So I'm going to take a small brush, add some paint, and then again just soften it a little bit with just a small size of brush with a bit of water. And then you just basically repeat the same process on each of the petals of the flower. Remember to let the paint fully dry on one side of the flower before you move on to the next one. And this is how it looks like when it's done. And then again, after everything is fully dry, you can see which side of the flower need more contrast, and then you can add some color along the outline of the flower. There's a white line along the petal. So you take a small brush with a little bit of paint and brush it along the center of the flower, and then add a little bit of gap on the middle, and then do the other part. We are going to leave the flower like this for now, and then we move to the other part. I'm just adding a little bit of green paint. I do not mix this paint with anything else. I think it's already good enough. And we are going to color the stigma of the flower with a small paintbrush. The color gets a bit faded closer to the center of the flowers, so I'm just going to do a little bit of gradation with the clean brush. To color the stem of the flower, it's pretty straightforward. You just add the green color and then maybe a bit more contrast to add the shadow just below the flower. And then you can also add the second layer of this part of the flower. Color the anther is quite easy. You just take a little bit of brown color and then color it in. You can use a second layer just to add a bit more contrast and follow the shape of the anther. When you're done with the stigma and the filament of the flower, when the paint is fully dry, you can add a little bit of retouch. You can add a little bit of retouch in the center of the flower just to make them a bit more contrast with the flower. And that's it for today. Don't forget to always clean your brush and then let it fully dry on the paper towel. What do you think of the result? Do you like it? The method to paint this flower is simple as well as a little bit complicated. I don't use too many layers. This flower does have a little bit of special effects like the blurry dots and the contrast of the color along the side of the petal and the gradation through the center of the flower. It will be very good practice for you and something new to try on. If you want to go ahead and learn watercolor, but you are worried about your ability to sketch this flower, and just go to my website. There are free printable sketches for you. You can just download them, print it directly to the watercolor paper. I upload a new sketch every time I post a new video. Let me know if you have any questions about painting this flower. I would love to hear from you. If you want to know about the type of paper I'm using for these videos, here it is, hot press watercolor pad, 300 grams, A4 size. I also just directly print this sketch onto this watercolor paper, and this is how it looks like. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I do really hope that you try this on at home and fall in love with watercolor like I do. Please do go to my channel and subscribe. It will give the support that I need to continue creating these tutorial videos for you. See you next time.